Hello, I'm Diane Martindale, the President of the Board of the San Juan Islands Museum of Art, and I welcome you to Island Artist Scenes, brought to you by SJIMA and San Juan Community Theater.
My name is Danielle Dean, and I am an artist who lives and works on San Juan Island in the Salish Sea. My artwork is deeply rooted in a sense of place. Conceptually, I address this on several registers. First, an overview of the physical location, placing the island geographically and geologically. Second, as a call to environmental activism through visual connection to and witnessing of the land and sea. Third is a concept that I am drawn to in all of my work, and that is the Celtic notion of a thin place, which is a place where one might feel that the veil between heaven and earth becomes thinner and a new perception is achieved.
Because we just like to swim and look at things. So we just tend to explore, take our time. We're not in it for like a lot of exercise swimming. We just really revel in the natural world under there. There's of course amazing wildlife here. I mean, everything from the megafauna of the orcas, and we've seen stellar sea lions in this bay under the water. But also, one of my favorite things is jellies and nudibranchs. And then for my artwork, I tend to photograph a lot of the surface of the water and the light coming through the water. So in my artwork, I like to kind of document like these liminal textures of the sea.
At first, I couldn't do anything. So all of a sudden, it just kind of went away. So I was finishing up work that was already in place, and then teaching online and making that transition. And then I was like, well, I get to stay home and make artwork. But I definitely was one of the people that was very emotionally overwhelmed by what was going on. But the new work that came out of it, it was all underwater images, and they're pretty kind of dark and murky and obscured, and I do feel like it reflects my emotional state of the time, just not knowing what's what. So. Right now what I'm working on is black and white film that I shot with the Nikonos camera, the underwater camera. And I'm just taking a look. Underwater photography is pretty tricky to get the right exposure. As soon as you get under the water, light gets cut down quite a bit. Every once in a while something comes together that it's just the right balance of kind of light and atmosphere. Of what I'm hoping to capture. I'm working with graphite powder. So I have the loose powder here, and I just start to see, how deep I want it. And then I start emphasizing where these shadows are. One of my first jobs here on the island was working with Barbara Cox, and we were actually working with the New York Times photo archives, just images that were printed in the Times. And a lot of them were supplemented, like painted into, whiteout was used just to make it more contrasty for the paper. So this is kind of almost like pre-Photoshop, painting into images. This is a Hainemule photo reg paper. This is digitally printed. Even though most of my images start with film, I tend to scan the film and export it or print it in a digital medium. It's an Epson inkjet print, but it is a really nice thick archival paper. And then I put a layer of wax on it to receive the pigments that I'm working with. Sometimes I go back in with oil paints to punch up the lights. But in the end, it ends up having kind of this nice sheen to it with the graphite powder. You know, I've been playing around with this kind of line between painting and photography since I was in high school. I actually was painting into my photos back then when I was working in the high school darkroom. This piece is called False Horizon, and it's started in much of the same ways I've been showing you in my studio. It's shot with the Antique Box camera. The actual image is a cloudscape. The film's developed, scanned, output onto an art paper, and then I go into the image with graphite, gouache, wax, different mediums until I get what I feel is more evocative of the landscape that I was in. For a lot of my art career, I've made things pretty small and intimate, but I've found that enlarging them to a pretty large scale, and some of my pieces are like 10 feet wide, it actually still remains intimate because you can get in close up and see these little details and these textures and almost erosions of the image. But when you stand back, it pulls together and makes you almost feel like you are in the space that I'm hoping to create. I connected with a friend with a cetacean biologist, and he attaches cameras to these whales, and he allowed me to explore this footage. So it's pretty remarkable. And so what I wanted to do was pull out 100 of these snapshots from this video, and an idea that you would get almost like an empathetic viewpoint of this whale's perspective. I think it's kind of fascinating when you start to see just, this is the actual whale that the camera's attached to, just like a little bit of hint of the actual whale that's diving, and you can see when it breaks the surface versus going down to where it's fairly dark. This is a sketch right now. I've worked some of the images a little bit larger, and I found that when you actually see other whales, it almost feels too much like aquarium images to me. So I think my final series is going to be a little bit more of these almost like color fields, where it almost gives more of the perspective, like more of the sensation of moving through the water from this animal's perspective. Ultimately, for my work, in the end, I wanted to have an environmental message. I choose to focus on the natural world because I think it's precious and important, and I would like the viewer to be able to place themselves in the landscape. And ultimately, if they could have a meditative experience seeing the work, that some kind of meditative, internal, even spiritual experience would be what I'd hope for. I find that, with us living here, we get to live in this pretty remarkable environment. But when I do bring the work into more cities, even public installations, I feel like I'm able to bring a bit of the peace of here to those different environments.
Thanks for watching, and thanks to the donors, volunteers, and supporting families that have made SJCT's 2020-2021 season possible. Click subscribe on our YouTube page to continue to see videos from San Juan Community Theater. Like all arts organizations, SJCT needs your help during this incredibly difficult season. To support SJCT or learn more, please visit sjctheater.org/support.